New hair, new day. I was looking a bit shaggy and tired earlier this week when I met Tas from IDS. IDS is a luxury lifestyle technology company based here in London, working throughout the UK and overseas. They support us with most of our clients' projects, but this time around, they're supporting me in one of my personal projects. Tas took some time out of his day earlier in the week to take a brief from me, and I'm looking forward to taking you on this exciting journey so that you get to experience how we incorporate various specialist services into our projects. This is not a Coca-Cola advert. I know I have the body of the Coca-Cola advert man, but I am here with Tas, and he is going to be taking me on my home automation journey for my project in Little Venice. So Tas, I'm going to hand over to you shortly, but maybe I start by giving you some information on the layout, how I've landed on this particular layout, and what I want to get from the space. And then you can guide me on what I need to make my life run a little more smoothly and to get the best out of the space with your home controlled solutions.
That's the idea.
So it was a two bedroom, two bathroom apartment. You see, it has been a long day, and it's now a one bedroom apartment with a large living, kitchen, dining area. I have two very large dogs. I wanted the open plan living space. I like to entertain, have people around for dinner, relax on the sofa, watch some TV. So Tas, I'm the client. You're the boss. Take it away.
I think you're the boss, Ryan. I think the important thing is, now that we've got a definitive layout, is just to understand how you want to use a space, how we're going to utilize the technology to integrate within your lifestyle, and perhaps go through the subsystems or systems just to have an idea of what's going to be relevant in the space for you. I think we should start off with lighting first, so lighting controls. You were with John Cullen earlier, so you have an idea now, hopefully, as to the type of lighting or lighting features that you look to have in the apartment. What we need to establish is how we're going to control that, what kind of scenes we want to implement, where we want to position those keypads within the apartment. And we can kick off by, I think, starting from the entrance, of course. So if we start from the entrance of the apartment.
So the entrance to the actual apartment is here. We've got the communal areas outside.
Okay, brilliant.
I guess I do want a sense of arrival when I arrive in the property. I would like some sort of smart solution where, on opening the doors at certain times of the day, the lighting, at least in the hallway, automatically comes on, rather than trying to get my keys away, my bags away, the dogs away, to then try and find switches, get the scenes set up. Something that sort of makes my life easier on arrival.
Well, on arrival, what we could do is we could have an Alexa nearby, and we could use voice control. You can walk in, say, Alexa, home, or I'm home, and it will engage all the technology systems, whether it's all the Alexa's gone off.
Yeah, Alexa's working.
Alexa, stop. and it will turn on the lights as per the particular scene that you at a particular day.
And is there a world where you would replace Alexa with something like a PIR sensor to turn on certain scenes?
Absolutely.
Because if you have friends or family visiting and they're not used to voice-activated home control solutions, it's not intuitive. You don't know instinctively that you can just call out a certain person's name and a system responds. And there's also a variety between Alexas and Siris, and there's an American one, I believe, that's...
The Josh AI, yes. Hopefully it's going to... We've heard good things about Josh AI. Unfortunately, it's not available in the UK yet, but hopefully in the next sort of 12 to 18 months, they might be rolling it out here. Yeah, so no, you're completely right. If you do have guests who are maybe staying in the apartment for a period of time.
Or things like the dog walker, who might be picking them up for a dog walk or returning them after a dog walk on a winter's evening, where it is dark late in the evening and there's no light in the central part of the apartment, which is where the front door in is. If that dog walker is walking a few dogs and coming in, you don't necessarily want that person trying to find switches and panels that they aren't actually used to operating anyway.
Correct. And we can have a PIR that will be programmed in particular times of the day, and it will turn on any light that you want. I mean, typically with a PIR, you may want some kind of low-level lighting so they can see where they're going if the area is a little bit dark. But essentially, what you would typically have from this door here. This door here, you would have a keypad positioned here. I can put KP here. Sorry about the writing, not the best.
Dr. Script.
Yeah. So we have keypad on entry. You're going to need a keypad, whatever happens on entry, but we can also utilize the PIRs and also voice control for yourself as well, so it's far easier. On entry, I would also suggest having, I don't want to jump to the control system just yet, but I think since we're at the entry, we should also have a touch panel, control panel. That control panel will allow you to control all of the subsystems, whether it be the lighting, the audio, the video.
Intercom.
Okay, exactly.
Heating.
Correct,
Cooling,
heating, cooling systems, all in that one central location.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we just move on from the hallway there and move perhaps to the bedroom, you're going to want a keypad on entry, and you're going to
have keypads either side of the bed.
Correct. That's right.
Now, given the distance from the front door to the bedroom, is there a need for another control screen in that room, or do you feel it's overkill in the space?
I think it's a personal choice. I personally don't think it's necessary to have one in the bedroom. You don't want to over specify. I think one in the hallway will give you, your distance is not too far. Bearing in mind you're going to have the lighting keypads will also give you the flexibility to control other elements in the home, not just the lighting. It might be the blinds, it might be the heating, cooling, the audio. So it's also kind of a sub-control system as opposed to kind of just a touch panel. Bearing in mind you've also got your pad. So if you've got your iPad next to your bed or your phone next to your bed, you can also utilize that to control the home.
I think maybe something to mention to you, just in keypad locations, we will be looking at integrating a TV into that wall opposite the bed as well.
Here, okay. Well, let's mark that there now anyway, since we're in the room. So we have a TV there. Do you want the TV on a mechanism there? I mean, you've got a desk here. I don't know if you want that to shift, or whether you want to perhaps hide the TV and you want to have it maybe in joinery work where it can pop out, or...
I'm restricted in the amount of space between the end of the bed and the wall that the TV is on. So I think anything that comes off the wall is going to sort of impact on or encroach on the usable space that you have. So it's probably going to be something that we build into the stud walls, just to take it off the wall surface and put it into the wall.
And are you wanting that completely flush?
I would like, I'm imagining it flush. I don't think I'll go to the extreme of using mechanisms to conceal it with sliding art or any other sort of future automation type systems that would help conceal it. I think it's important to mention, I don't see myself working from this desk. It's more of a vanity table, somewhere to take your watch off or to throw your phone down, or I see that being more of a lamp and sort of.
See, this is why it's so important for us to have these discussions, because without that information, I could be providing a solution that may not even be necessary.
Not be relevant,
So, okay, brilliant. Since, again, as we're going through the keypads and we have one here, it just gives you an idea of, the options you can have in terms of engravings on the buttons and the scenes that you can create throughout the home. And as you can see here with this particular keypad, we have the lighting control, but we also have volume control. So you can mute the audio in that particular room or across the whole apartment. So the beauty of a technology system is that it gives you complete flexibility, and it's meant to be seamless throughout the apartment.
I know from the various systems that we've seen installed in our projects for clients, I've always gravitated to ones that just said what it was going to be. So the morning, the daytime, the evening, I really like that. Or when you're in a living room, morning, daytime, evening, movie, because again, movie is darker than your evenings. I think I'm more likely to utilize the extra keys for something like the blind controls in the bedroom,
which makes sense,
as opposed to the volume up and volume down. Because there will be at least 2, if not 3, window treatments: blackout blinds, a sheer treatment, and a curtain treatment in the room. So that allows you some flexibility in designing the keypad layout and the functionality in that space. Because there's no lift mechanisms or concealed mechanics behind the TV, I just think simple remote control beside the bed for that is probably in that room where I don't see myself using the TV very often. I'm happy to simplify it in that area.
Okay, fine. Are you going to have any reading lights in the bedroom?
Yes, so there'll be reading lights integrated into the headboard. We have some pendant lights, and then there are going to be architectural lighting details on the windows behind the headboard, within the joinery, pendant lights, and then there'll be low-level lighting that will be on a PIR sensor that will come on if you get out of bed night to go get a glass of water or go to the bathroom.
Understood. Any 5 amps?
5 amps will be throughout the apartment. I'm a fan of lamps. I like the mood that lamps and floor lights can create. I like softer scene settings, more of a romantic type task. Hard to believe, I know.
Very.
And I much prefer that sort of candlelight experience with my lighting as opposed to lots of ceiling lights.
Great, good. All right, it's good because you're creating this, painting this picture now.
Pretty picture of myself.
Yes, of course. With you, Brian, always pretty. Okay, so we're also going to have a keypad for the bathroom here, so which we can allow for.
Because of the close proximity of the joinery on the right-hand side, the only place is to the left-hand side. Fine,
brilliant. Is there anything else you want to incorporate in this room? Or any other keypads that you feel is necessary?
I would flag that I'll probably want to, and I will be housing a printer somewhere. It is likely that will be concealed into some of the joinery in the bedroom, an A3 printer, so maybe we want to look at just hardwiring that rather than always relying on a network.
Absolutely.
We have the opportunity to do the wiring now, so we might as well.
Within all of our projects, we'll have a network backbone and infrastructure. And in cases such as this, where it's far more beneficial to have devices connected directly to the network, then we will have a data point in that particular location for the printer to be installed. So, and would that be somewhere in?
It'll be somewhere in there, and we'll have the detailed joinery drawings for you next week. Maybe I'll talk you through, because you've mentioned the lighting controls into the bathroom.
Yeah.
So having discussed that with John Cullen today, we will have a PIR circuit. So again, when the door opens at night time, at a certain time, it will only operate lighting at a certain level. So that'll be a scene that will be programmed within your home control solution. And then they're looking at decorative wall lighting, ceiling lighting, and other elements within the joinery in that space.
Brilliant. Okay, excellent. We'll move back to the hallway, which will lead us to the guest bathroom. So with the guest bathroom, there's a lot of instances where people just prefer to have a PIR, and you may have 2, maybe 3 circuits in the bathroom. Have you decided how many circuits you're going to have, and are you open to having a PIR? Would you rather have a keypad perhaps positioned on the outside, which will also allow you to control kind of this side or elements of the living spaces and the hallway there?
I would prefer to have the guest WC on a PIR only. I like the idea of people, that are over for dinner or drinks to be able to just open the door, lighting activates. They don't have to start looking for light switches or choosing their scene. It's also, I think, a little more hygienic as well. People can come and go. There's one less keypad to maintain.
Absolutely.
And you sort of control, this is in the room that has daylight. I can pre-program the level of lighting, and you predetermine the mood that you want someone to experience in that space. And I'm assuming through the programming we can have preset scenes for daytime, and then for the evening or dinner when people are around, there's another scene that can be a little more
we absolutely
club-like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we can do that. And what's interesting, actually, we were with one of our manufacturers, Crestron, we were on a webinar the other day, and they have new releases every few months, and the upcoming release, I think it's probably mid to end of the year, they're going to have a function for circadian lighting, which is really interesting. Which can be kind of pre-programmed, which will allow you, that. And
this is something that we can roll out at a later date into us.
Absolutely, yeah. We can. There's no restriction there as long as we upgrade the system and software. At that point, there's no problem. We can add that at a later stage. So, Brian, tell me about the entrance to the living space.
Well, it's actually going to be different to what you have in front of you. I promise. Issue you with a varied drawing.
You've been saying that for a while now.
I have. I'm putting my clients' projects ahead of my own. I'm taking out this little return nib in the hallway, creating sort of a dead space. It didn't add any benefit. This is now going to be 2 large pivot doors that lead you into the kitchen. It does pose a problem as to deciding on the location of the control panels, because there isn't a logical surface to mount it on as you enter the space, but let me know your thoughts. Where do you think it should go?
I think we may have to have an additional keypad, or maybe one more than perhaps you may have expected. It would make sense to have this on the outside of the living space.
So when you do that there, do people, when they're coming out of that living space, confuse it and think that, oh, this is for the hallway, and then all of a sudden they're starting to turn on and off the lights in the living room when you're watching a movie?
Well, see, Brian, this is the beauty of technology, because we can control the living space, and we can maybe allow a button or two to control the hallway space.
What's the maximum number of keys you can go to?
You can have, depending on the type of keypad, but on this particular one, you can actually have, I believe, 5 on one side and 5 on the other. So they're smaller buttons, which this is probably a better example. So these are the smaller buttons. Okay. So you have.
And you always you can't do 5 and 5. You would have. It's always.
No, you can reconfigure them. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. You can.
However
you can reconfigure them as you like. Okay. So there's complete flexibility there. So what we will do further down the line is we will sit down and discuss how those scenes are going to be created, and then we can coordinate as to with John Cullen as well as to what buttons are going to do what essentially.
Okay.
Okay. So I think at this point it would make sense to have it on entry here.
Yep.
But once you've moved into the space, it would also make sense to have another keypad perhaps here. So then if you're in this living space or in the kitchen space, you can go here and change the lighting there. And in the same space, I would probably suggest having
another control panel.
Correct, another touch panel. And then that way, again, you've got complete flexibility and control of all of the subsystems within the home.
Okay.
So we can put here TP, touch panel. Okay.
And obviously the size of the touch panels vary.
Yes, they do.
Is this what you're looking at in terms of a size? I'm very tempted to pull off your plastic, but I won't.
You can, if you want to see, you can, by all means. So they come in 5, 7 and 10 inch. Typically, the 10 inch would be better suited for the larger spaces, the living spaces, especially if you have, say, family or friends around, or maybe someone elderly who might not be able to see as well. They might want a slightly larger screen. For a bed, I know we're not looking to install one in the bedroom, but if you were to have one in the bedroom, maybe a little bit smaller.
Okay.
And you may control. You're more likely to control elements in that particular space in the bedroom as opposed to the whole home. Tell me a little bit more about the lighting in this particular room, so we get an idea of scenes and perhaps additional keypads in this space. I have noticed that you're having kind of a dining space around there, and I do believe it may be worth having another keypad in close proximity of the dining area. What are your thoughts?
I think you'll need one anyway for the exterior door to turn on and off the lighting at the.
Do you have exterior lighting?
Exterior lighting,
right,
yes.
Okay.
I mean, I guess to start, it's a multifunctional space, so it's kitchen, dining, bar, living, and it'll be used throughout the day at varying times of the day. I'm very lucky, it's a southwest-facing property, so it's going to have a lot of light. Very high ceilings, so again, there's going to be a need for shade management and curtain treatments. There will be a lot of lighting circuits. There will be 2 or 3 circuits within the joinery. There'll be multiple scenes or circuits in the ceilings. There'll be 2, if not 3 different pendants within the space. There'll be uplights within trees and plants. There'll be floor lights, in-floor lights by the doors. There'll be recessed lights into the window frames. And then we'll have all the lighting elements within the kitchen joinery as well.
It sounds incredible. Okay.
So a lot of lighting.
There is. I'm just thinking about the flexibility we'll have with 2 keypads.
So I would imagine myself using this one in the evening, taking the dogs out to the garden for a walk, turning on the lights onto the staircase leading to the garden and coming back in. I can see the logic in having it beside the dining table. I'll have served or prepared a meal and maybe retreating to the dining table. Rather than having to walk back into the room, you can just change the setting to serve the dining table. I can see the logic of this one as you flow through the space or you're leaving the space. So I think those are the 2 logical locations for lighting controls within the space.
Agreed. So Brian, how many lighting circuits are we having in the living space?
So obviously the lighting design isn't completed yet. At a guess, I reckon we'll be somewhere between 10 to 15 circuits for the kitchen, living, dining space.
Okay, brilliant.
I like my lighting.
Why not? I think actually lighting is such an important element. Within a home, it really sets the tone. So along with the lighting, we're going to incorporate the shading. It's southwest facing. You're going to have sunlight coming in, so it will be great for us to incorporate some sensors whereby, if the temperature increases above a certain level, then the shading will come down. So it regulates that kind of temperature. You don't want to walk in and it feels really hot in the space. So so I think these 2 keypads, I think, are positioned well, which gives you control in both ends of the room.
Okay.
I'm quite happy with this. If there's anything else you would like to add, then we can. But we can then perhaps start moving over to
the subsystems beyond lighting.
The audio,
Yep.
fun things. So audio in the master.
Acoustics and acoustic treatments are really important to me. It's obviously a Victorian terrace property. I want to be respectful to the neighbours below and the neighbours above. I don't see myself being a party boy and blaring music at night. At most, music when I'm getting ready in the morning or in the evening, or background music during the day. I know I have an existing Sonos soundbar that could be incorporated within the bedroom to go with an existing television that will be set within the wall, so maybe that's enough within the space. One of my concerns there though is what system do we end up using in the living room, because if you do want to have the same music playing throughout the space, if you've got a Sonos in one space and then you've got a different brand in another space, how does that work? Again,
with the control system, we can incorporate both of them, so
right.
there's nothing to worry about. If you want to have seamless audio throughout the home, then that's not an issue.
Definitely audio in both bathrooms. If I'm having people around for a dinner party, I would like them to be able to go to the guest WC and listen to the sounds of whales and the oceans crashing against the rocks.
Certainly helps, Brian.
And you know, if I'm getting ready in the morning or before I go out and I want to be listening to the news or some music to get me in the mood, then it's nice to have it in the
And what kind of space do we have in the ceilings for the bathrooms?
So
I think
currently
you
the ceiling height's at 3.9.
Yeah.
In the bathrooms, we're dropping the ceilings to 2.7. So there's ample space above for you to get speakers in there. And I'm less worried about noise travel to the neighbours for obvious reasons.
Okay, great. Fine. We'll just put a single stereo speaker, which should suffice.
Yep.
In those particular areas. We'll have the sound bar here, so we can put SB here for the sound bar, and then
definitely a speaker in the entranceway as well. I think if I'm going to have a transition from the dining table or the living room for guests to move from, and the entranceway also has the drop ceiling to 2.7, so this square area.
So it gives us the flexibility.
Yeah, the flexibility. I just think that experience of moving seamlessly from the dining table to the hallway and to the guest WC, you get that seamless transition with sound.
Agree.
You don't feel like you've left the party.
I totally agree. Okay, and then the living space. I know we have the high ceilings with the acoustics, so we're going to find it very difficult to get the audio in the ceiling.
So I don't want to put any speakers into the ceilings. I don't want to compromise the sound insulation acoustic barrier that we have created by cutting holes into it. Sort of defeats the purpose.
Yeah.
And I'll be guided by you. I'm not a massive music buff, or I never sit at home blaring music.
Yeah.
I've never had surround sound at home for watching a movie. That said, I'm not opposed to it. And maybe when you have it, you don't go back. It's how we would incorporate it into it. I have made some decisions, so obviously with your guidance I have gone ahead and selected a television that will be over the fireplace. I'll go for a more contemporary fireplace, lower level, so that I can bring the TV down as opposed to having it above a taller Victorian fireplace. I was conscious that I didn't sort of want that stretched neck that you get on the sofa looking up at a large screen, especially if you're trying to watch a movie and relax.
Absolutely.
There are multiple places in which you'll be watching the TV from, so I know we discussed the appropriate size of TVs previously.
Yeah.
Preparing a meal or sitting at the bar and looking back, the dining table, looking towards the fireplace or from the sofa. But I am completely lost as to what kind of audio solution would best complement the space, the lifestyle, and what I want to get from it.
Well, I think we can maybe consider, if we're unable to put these in the speakers in the ceiling, then perhaps we can put them in wall or in the joinery work here. And in the wall, if there is space within the, if there's a void there, then we can put invisible speakers as well. Being on the wall, it's a little bit different. You don't necessarily want a speaker to be visible, so we can use invisible speakers. That could be an option.
How deep are the speakers?
They're actually very, very thin. I can show you a sample at a kind of later stage. And they'll be plastered in, so they're completely invisible. And the performance, we've installed them many times on other projects, and clients are extremely happy with the performance. and you don't get to see the speaker, so we're hiding the technology away, which is great, and it's in keeping, I guess, with the aesthetic look perhaps that you want to have.
Yeah. And if I was to consider dropping the ceiling beyond the acoustic treatment and the acoustic barrier that we're currently installing on site, so we have our rock wool, and then we have an acoustic soundboard off the joist, and then we'll do a suspended ceiling, or can do a suspended ceiling below that again. If I was to increase the depth to give you space for the speakers, is putting it in the ceiling a more ideal solution?
It would be more ideal. The distribution of sound would be far better in the ceiling for this environment.
Okay.
But I guess that's something that.
And are you able to do an acoustic hood on the back of the speakers to stop sound transference going up? Yeah. And does it completely eliminate it, or just reduces it?
It reduces it. It doesn't eliminate it, but I think with the layers of soundproofing that you've allowed for, I think there's a good chance you're going to reduce the amount of sound going through significantly.
And can you control the maximum levels that those speakers can achieve? So if you have friends around and they've had one too many glasses of wine, can you restrict it from them being able to put on Kylie's latest hits and blaring?
Your favourite, isn't it?
His, I know. Yeah, Disco Diva is what I am. But yeah, it's just that safety mechanism that stops people being able to abuse my neighbours.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Which it makes sense, considering where you're positioned in the building. It would make sense to do that.
And would you be looking at plastered again in the ceiling to make them disappear? And
absolutely, if that's your preference, then yes. Otherwise, we can just install a regular square or round speaker with the mesh.
Is there a big price implication when you change from plastered into ones with visible grills?
There is a significant, you are paying a premium to have an invisible speaker.
Well, then maybe during the course of next week we can chat about what that sort of uplift would look like. I'm trying to keep the more historical look of the ceiling, ornate cornicing, less lighting, pendant lights as opposed to lots of downlights. It would be hard to come to terms with having to, because I'm guessing you're not talking about just 2 speakers in a space like this.
No.
We're talking probably 3-4 plus speakers.
Definitely need 4, at least 4 over the living space here, and at least 2 over the kitchen.
So 6 is quite a lot of speakers to have. So I think we would in this space be looking.
I sense that you're very conscious of the aesthetics, and it would make sense to go down the invisible route. So it's something that we should definitely explore. Yeah. I wouldn't want to compromise that.
And when you go the invisible route, what are the chances of having to replace the speakers or change them? Does technology advance that fast, or are speakers good for the next 5 to 10 years? And
the invisible speakers actually, the actual brains of the speakers are, they're not positioned within the speaker itself. It's a clever bit of technology that if it goes beyond a particular volume or decibel, it will cut out. Yep. So it's highly unlikely you're going to have an issue with the speaker itself.
Okay.
So I'm confident you should be okay with that.
And subwoofers, and is that something that's required, or? I'm worried about the sound transference down.
I think considering the sensitivity with the neighbours, perhaps that's something that we should leave out. A subwoofer will vibrate, and it will, unless you go, to another level and further soundproof, which is possible. Obviously, there's a costing implication to that too.
We are doing soundproofing to the floor as well, but obviously it's the vibrations and the bass.
Well, like you said though, you did say that you're not going to be blasting the music, but what a subwoofer can do is actually elevate that audio experience, where it just creates a bit more depth to the sound, which it sounds great. So it's it would be a very nice touch.
And obviously modern day soundbars, they incorporate everything into it, so it's nicely balanced. You're getting that sub effect without the subwoofer standalone speaker that we would, in this case, I guess, build into the joinery. If I'm not having the subwoofer, how do I balance? If you just have your stereo speakers, I guess, plastered into the ceiling, where are we getting that bass or that depth from the sound?
The higher the performance of that speaker, the more depth you'll have. For example, if you're having a 6.5-inch speaker, you'll get great audio. You won't have that, that depth. But if you go maybe a step up to an 8.5-inch speaker, then you have more depth. It's a bigger speaker. It's going to have more bass to that.
And given the distance from your ears to the ceiling, so we're at, let's say the ceilings by the time they're suspended, if that's the route we go, is 3.7. Are you really getting that depth from that height and that range, or do you need to?
You would need a higher performance speaker to try and get that, to try and bring that down.
And is there a risk at that point that you are increasing volume continuously to get to the experience that you would be used to if you were in close range of a very high quality soundbar that is radiating the noise out in multi directions?
I think soundbars have really moved a long way over the years. My view is that you're not going to get the same experience as having, say, 4 or 6 speakers in the ceiling with a subwoofer. So it's striking the right balance, really.
And I suppose you can incorporate the soundbar and then just restrict its levels within the programming and say it can never go above a certain level, and maybe an extra layer of rubber matting at the bottom of the joinery. We'll already have done the rock wool between the joists, we'll have done our ply, we'll have done the acoustic barrier, we'll have done an underfloor heating system, we'll have done an engineered floor treatment, then it'll be within the joinery again. So I guess as long as we isolate the base of that unit further, and maybe even the internals of that unit to stop the vibrations running up and down the main structure of the walls, we're reducing the risk.
Absolutely. I think it's achievable. It's definitely achievable.
Okay.
And I think we should look at it in more detail in the coming weeks.
I'd like to be able to control the fireplace as well within that space.
Yeah. So,
Alexa, fire on would be lovely. I'm an Apple person, so I use Siri all the time. My computer is Apple, my iPad's Apple. Do I go the Siri route, or do I go the person who's speaking to us now because I have said her name route? Because I guess you have to make that decision and go, is it going to be Google? Is it going, if you sort of, are you a hey Google person, or are you a hey Siri person, or are you a hey, I'm not going to say her name because she's going to start talking to me again person?
I think it really is, again, a personal choice.
Yeah.
And we have to also...
and can you make that decision later on, or does it have to be made fairly early on?
No, I don't think that's something that needs to be decided instantly, but from the beginning. But it's something that we would have to look at and see the parameters of the technology and what it will allow us to incorporate. And that's something that I could speak to my technical team in more detail.
So to give you an idea, I don't use Siri a lot, but I do use Siri at home currently for my lighting. So I have my morning setting. I'll say good morning Siri, and it turns all the lights on. So it's just done. If I have a evening, I'll say hey evening, and the evening setting, and then I'll say movie, and it turns off the lamps either side of the TV. It dims the lights, and it's done. So in particularly really handy if you're sitting on the sofa and you don't want to go to a light switch, or you don't even have your phone beside you and it's sitting on the ledge over there, or you're chopping in the kitchen. I have gotten into the habit of asking a question and conversions, or so I can see we're only going further that way.
Absolutely, I think voice control has improved over the years. There's still a long way to go, and it's going to be far more intuitive. And we can see the technology is really accelerating. So what you're going to be doing in the next couple of years is going to be phenomenal. But even now, it gives us, we walk into our office and we say, we tell Alexa to raise the blinds, and it does it instantly. So it's really handy, especially if I'm walking in with a bunch of things with me, I'm carrying my laptop and so on. It's very useful. But it's something we can definitely look at in more detail and see how we can incorporate that in the control system.
Amazing.
Okay, great. Shading, I know we touched on it before, so I'm just going to make a note here.
And I have spoken to John Cullen about shading this morning, because we are concerned that because this flat looks onto a communal garden that isn't lit at night time, we're going to get this mirrored effect on the lights. So we will probably have a double window treatment. We will probably look at a blackout blind treatment that can come down when I'm not at home. That will help with reducing the heat in a southwest facing unit, and then sort of a shear treatment or a perforated blind, so you can still get a bit of a view, but on a hot day you can reduce the sun impact on the property.
Yeah. And also, you know, it's really important, you know, if you're going to have, you know, expensive joinery work and you know, and sofas and so on, the sun will over time start to deteriorate these and it's a real shame, so it's really important to protect those. So it's definitely worth the investment. It makes complete sense. We said that there's no cooling, but there will be heating control.
Be a heat miser system controlling the underfloor heating system.
Okay.
And then you will be incorporating that, I guess, into your, not I guess, you will be, your home control solutions. We'll probably bank all of the heat miser thermostat controls or the individual units for the various zones in one central location. They won't be on the walls, and we'll use a thumbnail or a thimble sensor in each of the rooms.
Understood. Okay. And in terms of this is this is an important factor that can be overlooked, and I try and emphasize it as much as I can.
I know what you're going to say. You're going to ask for storage for your
space, please, Brian.
So I think
we need some. You know, there is not a huge amount of technology, but there is a substantial amount there. So we need to have an element of space where we can not only be able to maneuver the rack, but also to be able to ensure that it's cooled, or some kind of ventilation. And a lot of people tend to forget that the importance of keeping these systems cool. It's the difference of having an extra 5 years functionality. So you know, it's really, really important.
So how do you cool the equipment in a flat that doesn't have air conditioning?
Ideally, if you're near an external wall, then you can create some kind of ventilation with, you know, through the walls to allow some fresh air flowing. You're going to have vents.
You won't have?
We don't have vents at the top and the bottom, so hopefully the hot air can start circulating. And
so thinking outside the box, obviously we've dropped the ceiling above the entrance guest WC and the laundry cabinets. There'll be approximately 1 meter in ceiling height for that whole area. There is an old chimney that runs through that, and it currently has the vents that were running from the extraction fans from the old bathrooms and the kitchen running into that chimney breast. Is that an option to vent out? But would you have to enhance the extraction with some sort of a fan that was running to pull the heat out? But then you also have to, if you're pulling something out, you have to be bringing the air back in.
If it's possible, then that's great. If it's not, then we will have to just work within the parameters of what we've got. So if it's naturally just the hot air is naturally just, you know, being extracted. Then
what from the level of spec that we're looking at, what are the elements that you see getting the hottest and causing the most problems?
You've got the amps, the processor, the network switches. You know, we'll have a UPS in there as well, so a bit like a backup battery. Those are the key elements that are.
Okay. And do they generate a lot of noise when they're?
A lot of the systems now are far more silent than they used to be. There is an element of noise, but not a huge amount. The noise sometimes comes from, say, fans in the actual rack itself, which again could be an option there, to have a fan at the top of the rack which would just pull all of the heat out, which might be an added bit of help to get that.
So then maybe I think the best route forward on that side of things would be to have a meeting with the contractor and the electrician on site.
Yes.
Understand the spaces available to house these in them. There is space off of the living room, but my concern there is you're sitting on the sofa and you're listening to a fan or the network switches or other components within the rack buzzing behind you when you're trying to relax and watch a movie.
Understood,
I am concerned that the only places available for the rack are internal within the property and not on external walls. And there is no opportunity for us to house them anywhere else. So I think we probably need to arrange a meeting on site sooner rather than later.
Absolutely, a site meeting is a must to decide how to best approach this, to be honest. And security systems, is that something that you've considered as well?
I'd like to put
which is an important factor.
Okay.
Intruder alarm? Okay. Any form of CCTV, depending obviously on the building itself, because there's obviously other residents as well.
Yeah.
What are your
I think maybe an
flexibility there?
internal CCTV at the entrance,
Okay.
maybe at the rear entrance as well from the gardens would suffice.
Yeah.
I think that those would cover the two main entry points.
And are you allowed to install cameras on the external?
Not on the external, no.
Okay.
And then window sensors on the windows,
Yeah.
just to trigger the alarm.
Yeah.
There's an existing intercom system in the
Yeah.
property that I'd like to incorporate into your control panels and into your system.
Yeah. And perhaps we can upgrade the existing answering unit, because I believe it's relatively old. So hopefully with the existing.
Can we
manufacturer-
lose that and just use a screen to operate it as opposed to?
We have to see. I believe we should be hopefully be able to integrate it. We need to look at the manufacturer of that system.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it being a problem, but ideally, what we would want to do is to have this. The ideal scenario is to be able to have that the calls from the entry from the entrance door to be coming to the touch panels, to ring all the touch panels. That's the ideal scenario.
Perfect.
Okay. So now that we've discussed the audio, the TVs,
Fire, blinds, lights,
we've pretty much
security.
covered most of
Yep.
it. We also need to cover the Wi-Fi and network infrastructure. So it's important to have Wi-Fi access points. What we want to try and do is hide them away, but without sacrificing or compromising the performance of those access points. So if you give me an idea of joinery work perhaps we can build it into.
Well, because we're
that'd be
dropping the
great.
ceiling in the central part of the property,
Yeah.
so this whole central section and keeping the ceiling height elsewhere, is it okay to conceal the Wi-Fi repeaters within that area?
We can. My only concern is whether that's going to restrict the signal, depending on how much, how thick the plasterboard and the soundproofing that's going to be within that void. We need to be a little bit careful there. Okay. We don't want to.
Do you have guidelines as to how thick the plasterboard could be? So, for example, if they were within the vertical stud walls on this side and this side, so just within the stud partitions, there's only one plasterboard in front of it. Is that enough to service this room if it was?
That should be okay.
Yeah.
That should be okay.
And we could leave it exposed on the other side so that when you are in the void in the attic space, it's easy to service those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as we have access to it,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be an issue. But I think we should incorporate perhaps one for the
so if we put
bedroom,
one in this stud here,
yeah,
and then one on the stud up there,
and then one covering
so this
section
is the
over
stud
here.
wall that continues up through the property.
Okay.
And I'm guessing if it's just one plasterboard in front of it, it's not going to impact on the distribution of the Wi-Fi network.
Not a huge amount, and we're not talking about very, very large spaces, so we should be okay. And I think two should suffice really. Okay, great. So
Is there benefit to putting one in the kitchen on top of the kitchen cabinets, or is it just overkill? Because it could I'm assuming it's the really small disc-like ones that we would normally mount
they
on
are,
the
yeah,
ceilings.
they're very similar. I mean, they kind of vary in size, but you're looking at around sort of that kind of.
Yeah.
It will give you, if you're
In
outside in the garden, it will give you a bit more coverage in the.
So
in the
maybe
garden
we
space.
allow for one to sit on the cabinet above
Yeah.
the fridge freezer.
What we'll try and do
push
is
it right to the back, and then when you're standing in the room, you're not going to see it.
So with Wi-Fi access points, they work well when it's kind of facing in the direction that it's kind of positioned. So if you're kind of facing it this way and the Wi-Fi is pushing out this way, it's kind of better to position it in that that kind of way. So we'll try and position it so that you're getting distribution this way across the apartment. So it gives you coverage here.
Okay.
And then this one will facilitate kind of this space there.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. All right, so just to summarize everything, we've discussed the lighting, the controls really, which is going to incorporate all of the subsystems, the TVs, the Wi-Fi and network infrastructure, the security systems. I think at this point it would be great to arrange a meeting to get onto site with the main contractor and the electricians, and have a further discussion about these markups. And then what we can then do is we can then start developing that design and getting it into formal drawings, which we can then issue to the rest of the professional team.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.